All the world's peoples have preserved, by legendary and traditional records, the stories of the remote ages of Earth, many of which tell of the relationship between Earth and Moon. However, not all fabulous stories about the Moon are of ancient origins. Many lunar myths are of very recent coinage, but of these, the least said the better. Most of the world's literature, both religious and Rabelaisian, drew their basic themal motifs from the Earth-lunar relations of antiquity, which are the primary source of the paradisiacal age and a catastrophic dissolution of a union between Earth and the celestial world of the gods, Ariana, Parnassus, Eden, Valhalla, all mid-heaven worlds of the gods. By present concepts of celestial mechanics, of course, such a union and separation between planetary spheres would be impossible. The gravitational force of the greater sphere would wrench asunder the lesser, reducing it to disintegrated masses of debris, which would descend upon the world in a devastating deluge of fiery debris. A favorite theme of religious horrifics. Since the formulation of mechanical laws, however, the discovery of electrical and electrostatic properties of matter has opened further horizons, nuclear possibilities now that of its dissolution. A unique practical example of the ability of dissimilar-sized celestial spheres to assume a state of union without disintegrative dissolution was afforded by the advent in space of Coggia's comet of 1874. Here, with remarkable clarity of detail, we have two united spheres, proportionally similar to Earth and Moon, its equinimical voyage through space. The space wanderer seemingly is everything but what the general descriptions of comets specify, i.e., gaseous nebulosities with tails pointing away from the sun and illuminated by sunlight. These fleeting spheres both appear to be of very substantial nature and size. The flowing tail is of hollow tubular form and is obviously generated ahead of the leading curve of the larger sphere. This laminate frontal effect is typical of shockwave generation by a superspeeding body. Shockwave in empty space? That the tail is self-luminous is shown by the absence of solar shadow upon the spheres and leading underedge of the generating wave. The Cherenkov law of superfast particles states that the ridge shape of the main wave is determined by the velocity of the moving body and the waves propagated in the given medium. A light wave can only arise in any medium if the velocity of the charged particles exceeds the speed of light. Tesla proved that planetary bodies are charged and chargeable during his Colorado experiments when he raised and modulated the Earth's charge and produced the first man-made lightning and thunderstorms. Astronomers also have found in distant space a nebula, which is expanding and contracting at velocities greatly exceeding that which is generally understood as being the velocity of light. Evidently, space travel factors are overdue for considerable revision of probabilities, and much else besides it seems. It is now appearing that a former union of the Moon with Earth may have transpired, as so many ancient records claim, and is not so remote a possibility as was previously thought to be the case. To persons situate upon the large of the celestial worlds, the heavens, as these appear from Earth, would be invisible. Instead, the dome of the skies would be composed of glowing, scintillant light. Contrasts of day and night being absent upon this world, as would be changes of seasons and weather, so the pulse of time as measured by these would not exist. Only a slow increase and decrease of the brilliance of the glowing celestial dome would mark a slow axial rotation of the worlds. The solar image, a diffuse flowing nebulosity. Upon the hemisphere of union between the worlds, crowned and flanked by vast wings of light, the brilliantly illuminated lunar sphere would soar in stupendous, massive glory, dominant in the heavens as a veritable abode of the gods. In the event of the Earth and Moon having passed through a similar phase, visual images of this type would not have failed to impress themselves upon human memory and to become traditional elements of historical legends and folklore. Similarities of the visualized picture with those of ancient records, describing the state of Earth during the Golden Age and Earth as a paradise, are rather too complete to be entirely coincidental. The use of the winged orb of Isis, Moon, in Near Eastern symbolism, being traditional for thousands of years. In later ages, displayed suspended between bull's horns, symbol of the celestial bull which gored the earth. Lilith, Io, Istar, Venus, Ashtoreth, Astarte, and Sin all being symbolic personifications. Greek Io becoming Eu in Europa, and the bull converting to Ijo in northern climes. Sindhu and Chandra, the moon people. Near Eastern and Mediterranean peoples designated the orders of the paradisiacal and subsequent ages as the Golden, Silver, Copper, Iron, and Stone periods, similarly quoted as an image in the biblical records. Each successive period a denigrative step for humanity until, upon a folly-ravaged earth, mankind became reduced to primitive barbarism, out of which he commenced the long climb to regain his forfeited stature. The moon as Lilith emanates from the traditions and literature of India, and so through Sumer Babylonia into early biblical as Lilith, the first wife of Adam before he fell for Eve, Earth. Man's original sin was ignorance, so you can forget the fig leaf bit. In later mystery religions initiations, the moon was symbolized by the figure 2, the state of union, later representative of self-undoing abortive chaos, and as the disintegrating dead shell of a previous embodiment with Earth, frequently represented by a solid black disk as the dark moon of desolation. Sin and the moon are synonymous. Ancient traditions attribute the birth of our world from a star situated in the tail of the bear. Whether this indicates the galaxy which lies beyond or not, is beyond resolution. However, in the Puranas and Vedic literature of India, including the over 20,000-year-old Surya Siddhanta, we really become immersed in vast cosmic dimensions. This treat of galaxies, suns, planets, moons, in a vast sweep of motion and interchange of celestial elements. Transformations of suns into planets, planets into moons, moons to suns and planets. Of suns and planets which interchange galaxies, and galaxies which transpose to other cosmic stations, in an almost incomprehensible kaleidoscopic whirl of cosmic transitions. Changes beyond our credibility, until we now face the possibility of turning our Earth into a nuclear sun by our own folly. One Puranic parabolic story, however, relates the story of our system's origin and vicissitudes in the allegorical form of a not-too-happy celestial family. From the translation by Dr. Bhagavan Das. At the commencement of the present aeon, the solar powers, Surya, united with the creative directive force, Sanya. 3 children were born of this celestial union. Overwhelmed by the effulgent radiance of her lord and weakened by the strains of childbirth, Sanya created a counterfeit of herself, Chaya, to whom she committed the care of her husband and children, and departed to the further northern regions to recuperate her depleted strength. Neither Surya nor the children detected the substitution of Chaya for Sanya. The deception passed muster for many years, during the course of which Chaya also bore 3 children fathered by the lordly Surya. One day, it so happened that in a tantrum, Yama Pluto, Earth, raised his foot and kicked Chaya, who turned in anger and cursed him, so that he ran lame at one orbital point. Incensed by this unmotherly conduct of Chaya, Surya seized her by the hair, Comet, shaking her violently and upbraiding her for her unseemly conduct. In retaliation for this, Chaya revealed the deception that had been perpetrated upon Surya by Sanya. Leaving Chaya in charge of the household and children, Surya departed in search of Sanya. After many wanderings, Surya discovered Sanya's retreat, where he resumed conjugal relations with his real wife, who eventually gave birth to twins born of the reunion. As time passed, Surya became aware of the weakening effect his glowing radiance had upon Sanya, and of his irregular shapes spreading over the heavens. Seeking out Vishvakama, Vulcan, the celestial artificer. He begged him to put him on his lathe and make him nice and smooth and round in shape, which would reduce his overwhelming radiance and make him more tolerable for Sanya. Setting Surya upon his lathe, Vishvakarma spun him round and round, paring off all his protuberances until Surya was smooth and round of shape, Brahma. From the solar pairings removed from Surya, Vishvakarma made himself a stock of implements for use in peace and war. Now of smooth shape and toned down effulgence, Surya returned to his family. Gathering these around him, he proceeded to dwell contentedly with his 2 wives and 8 children. Although somewhat veiled by the story's allegories, this ancient descriptive picture of the solar system and its origins corresponds very closely with the present state of the sun and planets. The 3 inner and outermost planets are of greater density. Astronomers are searching for an outer planet, which may prove to be the missing twin. The 3 larger planets are of greater density. Saturn, with its unique ring system, perhaps may be an enervated and quenched solar body. The counterfeit body Chaya may have disintegrated into the asteroid belt. The Earth does slow down and speed up again in orbit. Halt. Mercury is actually an intrusive moon in solar orbit. Solar pairings may perhaps form cometary bodies, of which there were many more in past ages. Although speculative, the close correspondence of features is most remarkable. The numbers tally. The solar, hydrogen weapons and implements suggest that our development of hydrogen bombs was anticipated many centuries ago. Another of the Puranic celestial family allegories treats more exclusively with the Earth-lunar changes. Bhagavan Das translation. At a time very long ago, Father Moon, Chandra, deserted his wife Mother Earth and eloped with a wife moon of his teacher, Brihaspati Jupiter. A child, Buddha Mercury, being born of this illicit union. Greatly angered and inflamed by this trespass against his domestic felicity, invoking the aid of the Peters, ancestors, Brihaspati Jupiter then waged a great war in the heavens, setting these aflame amid chaotic turmoil. This celestial uproar so alarming and terrifying Father Moon Chandra that he hastened to return the purloined moon to his teacher's domestic hearth, the bastard moonchild Buddha being exiled to an orbit close to Surya's sun. Tiring of his celestial philandering, the repentant Father Moon Chandra returned to his true wife Earth, reuniting with her in conjugal bliss. This union endured for many eons until disrupted by violence and rebellion upon the part of the children born of this union, who ejected Chandra from his home, thrusting him out into the orbit which he now follows. His ravaged face ever turned in nostalgic longing toward his former home. This story of orbital interchanges and inflammation of the red spot of Jupiter coincides with many other world legends of periods when there were 2 moons in Earth's skies, and of other periods when there was no moon at all in the night sky. The many versions, however, do agree upon the point that at one period of the Earth's history, Moon and Earth were united and then separated by violence. Turning to the legends of the South American continent, the people of Patagonia, the Chilean islands, and Tierra del Fuego all regard themselves as being children of the moon who were left orphaned when the moon departed to seek the sun. Ascending the continent, we find that the folk tales of the Man-Puke state that, as a people, they descended from a handful of survivors left in the abject misery following great floods and cataclysmic upheavals of mountains caused by the moon falling into the earth. The gods Kaikai and Tren later raised the mountains and seas higher. Centrally from the high regions around Tiahuanaco come the stories of a time when the moon grew many times larger and brighter than the sun, searing the earth with intolerable heat until obscured by ashes. In general, these South American legends do seem to indicate that the southern hemisphere was the seat of the Earth-Moon union. A massive union of this type could not but leave evidence in the geological features of Earth. Were we able to read the patterns of the Earth's surface features? Viewed from a point above Antarctica, the salient characteristic feature of the land-water pattern is that the tapering fingers of the land masses, Australasia, South America, South Africa, all center upon a point situated upon Antarctica. Sub-oceanically central medial ridges follow a similar radial pattern, leading from Antarctica. A twisting curvature, imparted to these as they approach the equator, conveys the impression that these moraine ridges have been produced by some globe-enveloping and scouring avalanche, spreading from Antarctica. Geologically, the rocks of the Earth's continents also bear the scorings of glacial flows, moving from south to north, which cross tropical equatorial regions. Passage through tropical zones is a feature which one would not associate with glacial masses. What then could these masses have been to have impressed in so marked a degree the record of their passage? Only one other characteristic feature peculiar to the southern hemisphere presents a further clue, in that the fractured apexes of the lithospheric shell very closely duplicate the shapes of a ruptured egg after the chick has burst from within Antarctica, resembling the detached cap. This characteristic feature does suggest that the shell of Earth had been subjected to immense stresses of swell, which ruptured the outer lithospheric shell. Was this in response to a lunar gravitational flux? And where is the remainder of the ruptured shell? Not on the ocean bottoms, as these are chiefly basaltic in nature and not those of submerged lithospheric elements. With the exceptions of the mid-North Atlantic Plateau and the South Pacific Rise. Perhaps if we visualize the probable sequences and consequences of a catastrophic lunar Earth parturition, some relevant features may appear as the picture develops.